Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Think Pacific online information session. It's great to see you all here online today. My name is Karen Groon, and I work in the Global Opportunities team here at Queen's University. And in the Global Opportunities team, we promote and support opportunities for students who want to work, study, or volunteer abroad. So today we're kindly joined by Cam from Think Pacific, who is going to tell you all about an exciting opportunity to take a virtual internship. So Cam, on behalf of Queen's, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. And on that note, I'll pass over to you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Karen. That's such a lovely introduction. We don't ever get those if we do our normal webinars, so I'm very honoured to be introduced. But really, guys, welcome to this webinar, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here talking with you. My job today is to take you through exactly what the remote internship is. I feel like when we just say kind of remote internship, everyone's like, how the heck does that work? So we're going to dive into exactly what it looks like if you were to take it on, what it entails, where it comes from, and actually what it serves as well. So hopefully good bits of information for your awareness if you are thinking of taking on a program like this. And after that lovely introduction from Karen, my name is Cam. I'm the current program manager at Think Pacific. So my job is to essentially oversee this remote internship and similar programs. So hopefully I'll be quite a good person to talk to you about it. I'm aware that we're going to go through this, all this information at lightning speed, so you can get as much as you can in the next kind of half hour or so, 35 minutes, and about as long as I think the webinar will take. And obviously, if you've got any questions at all, I know you've got a chat function on Webinar Jam, so absolutely fire any questions in there, and we can get to them at the end. But as for the start, before we dive into the program in itself, I think it's just really good to kind of understand Think Pacific, who we are, where we come from, what we serve. So I've got a very quick slide kind of giving you the highlight and overview of that. So Think Pacific, first and foremost, are a UK social enterprise and registered Fijian charity. We are absolutely both. And you can imagine that means that we've got a base in the UK and a base in Fiji with kind of two teams. And although we're geographically as far as you can possibly be from the other, we work on absolutely everything together. It's one organisation with two different bases. And the structure of how everything works is essentially the social enterprise in the UK kind of manages, facilitates and plans the programmes. And the foundation in Fiji is essentially where delivery takes place, and anything that comes through from that enterprise in terms of fundraising, grants are given to our partners and hand out, etc. So that's kind of the structure of how we work as an organisation. But if you want kind of an overview, a mission statement, delivering meaningful programmes in rural Fiji, and essentially in regards to our Fijian partners is what we do. And we have been doing for just over 10 years now. You probably gathered then in that brief description that the absolute backbone of what we do as Think Pacific is supporting our partners. It's absolutely integral to how we function. And Think Pacific don't need to exist, but what we try and do as an organisation is act as kind of like a surplus of support for existing initiatives in Fiji, which are incredible. So we have multiple partnerships with government ministries, the Fijian government, and multiple different NGOs as well. And I don't know whether it sounds as cool as being partnered with the Fijian government. I don't think it does, but we're also partnered with over 100 universities globally as well. Queen's BELFAST University being one of them, hence the discussion today, which is very exciting for us, even though it might not sound as cool as being partnered with the government, because what it means is we've worked with students for a long time, and not only understanding how to get the best out of you guys in terms of what you study, any other skills you have kind of experiential wise as well, but also understanding what you want to get out of a program like this as well. Hopefully it's a bit of a win-win. There is university funding available for this particular project we're talking about today, the remote internship through university, which is extremely exciting, and some really cool things you guys can jump on, and something we're going to talk about later on in this webinar. And Fiji only is another really important point to make as well. I think the title Think Pacific is always a little bit misleading. We don't focus on the whole of the Pacific. We focus exclusively on Fiji. Why? I thought I'd give you a bit of a heads up at the top of this slide. Well, firstly, Fiji is absolutely fascinating, is endlessly fascinating as a country. Unique customs and traditions that don't exist anywhere else in the world, let alone the Pacific. I mean, you can see there that Fiji is not one island, it's 333 islands in the Pacific. It's an archipelago. So you can imagine, even within that, the diversity of culture is huge. I mean, to give you an idea of that, there's a population of about 890,000 people in Fiji, and of Fijian language alone, there are over 300 dialects. So that's kind of what we're talking about is so cool. There's a real communal approach to life in Fiji. It's quite indicative of more of a collectivist society rather than an individualistic one that we used to overseas sometimes. And obviously a unique perspective that comes through that cultural background as well, which is so necessary to value on a global stage, particularly with kind of global humanitarian challenges. A Pacific worldview, in particular Fijian one, is such a valuable kind of flick of paint on that global canvas. So that's really what we're trying to champion through the projects that we deliver. And why we work in one place in particular, firstly, it's partnerships. So building a network of communications, it's like a spider web in one place is great, but also for targeted impact. If we focused on the whole of the Pacific, we feel like our time and resources might be kind of stretched and diluted, and therefore the impact. But if we work in one place, it means we're working towards very specific goals set out by a very specific government to hopefully have a very targeted impact. So that's why we work in one place in particular. And for us, it just so happens that Fiji is that place. And if you wanted some stats of some previous impacts through the foundation, you've got just a couple there. You could, I'm sure you have already, just flick through with your eyes now. But again, just to kind of bring up that when you join a remote internship like this, when you work directly for one of our partners, you're not going to be changing the world. You're not changing Fiji, and you're not changing them. That's not the point with these projects. What each individual initiative and project is, it will have a ripple effect. So essentially, you can think of each action project, each internship as like a chess piece in a much bigger game of chess, which you're kind of facilitating by being a part of. So that's a bit of background about kind of what we do, where Think Pacific comes from, and I guess where the internship directly kind of relates into that as well. But for you guys, that's a bit of background on Think Pacific. Why on earth might you want to join a remote internship? And we're completely aware that this is a huge part of any internship. It's experience, it's learning. And although you're doing great work for our own aims and initiatives, for our partners, your development is a huge part of this process as well. And that's absolutely fine. And that is a key kind of section and part of it. So these are just a few. There are loads of reasons why you might want to apply. But just based on kind of feedback we've received from people who've done it before, these are generally the ones that come up the most. And so number one at the top of the list is global experience. And I think rightly so. There's plenty of opportunity to have this global experience. Although this is a remote program, I think when you take away the physical limitations of a physical project, to say being in Fiji, what you get is a really global team. We have people from all over the world taking on this internship. The barriers to entry are so low, which means you get a global experience just by meeting other interns, but otherwise just learning about a fascinating place like Fiji in a remote setting as well, but also gaining work experience through quite a unique opportunity. Real action projects, we're going to talk a lot about this later, but what you'll be working on is real work. It's not hypothetical, it's tangible, and it's something that's been requested. Cultural IQ, learning about Fijian culture, even in this remote setting, I'd say especially in this remote setting, is incredibly important before you even think about working for a Fijian organisation in Fiji. So cultural IQ is a key thing to think about. Exclusive partners you'll be working on behalf of, personal mentoring, so a team member from Think Pacific to oversee and support your journey on the internship. Contribution is hopefully one thing you're joining for as well. May not be kind of the overriding thing, but whether you like it or not, if you're joining the program, you are facilitating initiatives of Fijian-led development. So genuinely making an impact towards the UN SDGs and particularly Fiji's National Development Plan, which is how the government's incorporating those goals in Fiji. And I guess lastly, global citizenship kind of covers a lot of those topics. When you have global experience, global kind of work experience, and learn about culture in a global, increasingly globalized world, and particularly having these kind of unique skills on this program, such an important point for developing challenging perspectives, biases, and this is one heck of a way of doing it. So the remote internship then, it's about time. That is a bit about what you might be thinking, why you might be joining Think Pacific, but how does this particular internship come into the big kind of category that is Think Pacific and impact? Well, for you guys, just as a bit of awareness point, just a very quick overview slide that goes through some of the main points, all of which we'll go through in a bit more depth in just a second. The whole point of this internship is to continue, well, it all came about during the pandemic, essentially. Once in-country travel stopped, once kind of international participants could go in-country and work on the ground. Once that was stopped because of COVID, we thought, how on earth can we keep kind of supporting our partners and what they do? And they themselves actually kind of stipulated this program. And it really is an opportunity for you guys to work directly for our partners without even physically being in Fiji. So aside from the learning and the training you receive, the whole focus of this internship is that you're actually completing requested work, action projects for our partners. So it is unique work experience, all from home. You're working for an organization in Fiji, but from your sofa. You are working on real problems and having that time and space to innovate and be creative. There are 10 career fields you can work in and learn from. There are extensive learning modules on Fiji. It's fully flexible placement across 120 hours over a variety of different weeks. You can choose between a 4, 8, or 12-week program, and those hours are split up accordingly from there. Unique work experience, again, gaining stuff for your CV doesn't sound too bad. Speaking about this in interviews moving forward. Connecting, networking, learning from kind of expert guest speakers, government advisors, etc. And the fees, of which are usually £595, but there is, of course, funding available from your university. So that's a proper whistle-stop tour of the internship. But just to dive into a couple of those in a bit more depth, not only on the internship are you completing learning modules, completing training, and then working on specific tasks set by our partners, you've got a whole bunch of content you can dive into as well. There are weekly sessions that happen every week on the internship delivered by our teams. These are weekly briefings, networking events that happen weekly as well. Fijian culture workshops with our staff, skills series, which is kind of like where you get to hear from industry experts in the sector. And it's kind of like a TED Talk style talk on their experience, which is just such a great thing to come along to. Phase webinars specifically on Friday, and a whole host of other things that go on weekly, aside from the community that you're a part of on the internship. All in the interest of making sure the work you're completing is as high quality as it can be, but also for your own development and your own experience in the internship. And mention very quickly the program length. You've got a few options for this. It is 120 hours overall, but 4 weeks is much more the full-time option. So you're looking at 30 hours per week for that. As and when you do those hours during the week, it's completely up to you. And 12 weeks right on the other side of the spectrum, much more part-time, much more doable alongside other commitments, particularly if you're doing this alongside university. You're only looking at about 8 to 10 hours per week for that. So you can tell it really is just a case of thinking about when this is going to suit you best. But summer dates are definitely available for this that you guys will be looking into. So just thinking about what suits the situation best and suits you guys most kind of appropriately. But how does it work? Good question. Well, the way to think about the internship is it works in phases. So you start and there's kind of starting point of the journey, and you end with a completed project at the end of the journey. So how this all happens is, number one, the discovery phase. It's all about immersing yourself and learning about Fiji and the sector that you're working in. So incredibly important at the first stage. This kind of moves on to a discussion phase, which then happens throughout the remainder. This is discussing with your peers, with your mentor, about your passions, your own skills, and the projects you end up taking on. And you choose those projects in the decide phase. One-to-one mentor sessions to make sure you're fully aware of what that project will be and entail. And you make that decision, namely which organization you're going to work for and which task you'll take on as well. Design is logically the next thing after that. Once you've chosen that task, it's about beginning to put it together and respond to that task that's been set. And right at the end of the internship, deliver, actually delivering your proposal to that organization in a presentation format, but also uploading any documents you've created. So 5 Ds is, we're calling it the 5D process. 5 words beginning with D. So long shot where we got that from, but all intentional. There's a little bit more depth though. The discovery phase is the first thing that you'll encounter. And this is quite chunky. No matter how long you choose your internship to be, you can expect this phase to take about a quarter of the whole internship. It's really, really important, not only fascinating, but integral to the quality of work that you produce, particularly within a Fijian. So what it is working through learning modules at your own pace. You'll be given access to exclusive access to an online portal, which has module content sections, as you can see on the screen. And it is a case of just going through and chewing on the information that's there. There'll be a mixture of resources like videos, PDFs, links to articles, websites, you name it. There's a lot of variety, but stipulated in these different areas. Number one, the first module encounter is an introduction to the internship. Nice and simple. Mindset for success, number 2, so very much introductory into kind of the bigger topics. Module 3 is the big one. This is so important, and it's much bigger than the other modules. You'll learn about indigenous Fijian culture and history, origins of culture, politics, really important things to engage with, but also Fijians of Indian descent, a huge demographic in Fiji. So as much information you can get under your belt from that as possible really is putting you in good stead moving forward. Modules 4, 5, and 6 are very much about development, both globally and in Fiji, for you to understand kind of the background picture of why you're doing what you're doing. 7, a bit more about Think Pacific if you're interested. And Module 8, exploring the internship fields. This is your opportunity not only to go from the universal things, so kind of modules 1 to 7 we expect everyone to do. Module 8 is your choice to then specifically focus on a career sector of your choice. And what on earth do those look like? Here they are. These are the different sectors that you can choose from. And you might be looking through now and thinking, God, I study kind of things related to the environment. That's obviously the one for me, in which case I'd say, great, absolutely go for it. If you've got some knowledge in that area already, learn about that in a Fijian context and apply your skills, fantastic. But again, if you're looking at the screen and thinking, God, you know what, I've always wanted to look into NGO management or public health, but I've never had the chance. Again, we'd say absolutely go for it. It's completely your choice. It might take a little bit longer to kind of get your awareness and knowledge up in that area, but we don't need any skills or experience moving into this program. We do believe there's enough here in the discovery phase to prep you in any of those sectors to then work for any of the organizations that come under that afterwards. So all these have a bespoke module that go into the past, present and future of that sector in Fiji. You can really dive into as much detail as you can there before you then go and work for an organization that would come under one of these umbrella categories. So completely up to you. And again, don't be scared of trying something new on the internships. Always a great thing to do. Right, the next stage. So after you've done Discover, after you've understood a bit more about Fiji, you've understood the sector, and you feel like you're ready to begin thinking about the work itself, the decide phase comes next. To be honest, the action project itself takes up the decide, design, and deliver phases completely. It's the focus for the remainder of your internship. And what on earth is an action project? And well, an action project is a term we're using to describe one of the tasks that one of our organizations, or partner organizations in Fiji, has sent forward for you to complete. And like we can't stress it enough, it's a real organization, and what you're working on is aimed to have a real impact. It's not made up. It's not kind of a hypothetical thing you are working on. It's real and in the moment. And there's a huge variety of what that can look like. But whatever you're working on, not only is funding going into the organization to hopefully kind of assist with implementation of your ideas, and should they like them, but also you're increasing the capacity and sustainable growth of that organization, whichever project you choose. So the first step is choosing your organization. There are over 70 organizations we work with, and over 70 that have signed up to be a part of this internship. So you've got a heck of a lot of choice. They are all amazing. They work in very different sectors towards very different goals, but also have shared goals that we've already discussed. So the key area here is looking through and finding a partner that really speaks to you, whether it's their ethos, their aims and objectives, obviously your own passions and interests based on what they align with. Once you feel like you found an organization that you're like, yeah, sounds pretty good, the next thing is choosing your task. Overall on the internship, I think we've got 260 tasks that still need doing. So there's so much choice, and they work on a conveyor belt system. So once someone's done a task, we'll take it away. And once a new task comes in, it'll be put on the portal. So again, choosing a task that suits you best is incredibly important. Things that come up quite a lot are policy writing, strategic marketing, website design, content creation, these sorts of things. And that's what we'll be working on. And like we've already said, at the very end, once you put something together, you've looked over it with your mentor and they think, yep, that looks pretty good. The last thing to do is to present that work to them in the form of a proposal. It's a recorded presentation, a folder attaching any of the documents you've created, and that'll be sent straight to Fiji upon the completion of your internship. So that is kind of the main reason this whole internship exists. But I mentioned that we work with over 70 organizations on the internship. I've got a couple of slides coming up that just go through a few, just if you're interested to see. I've tried to split them up into different areas. So you've got some more category of kind of Fijian ministry, so big dogs in Fiji, kind of governmental branches. But on a slightly smaller scale, organisations and charities, slightly smaller, but by no means less valuable to complete work for. So if you're someone who's interested in the education sector, I mean, Ministry of Education on the left there, that'll be a really cool thing to look into. If you're interested in kind of psychology, mental health, Youth Champs for Mental Health are doing amazing things in Fiji right now. Psychiatric Survivors Association, Fiji Alliance for Mental Health, you get the idea. There's plenty of choice. So it's just a case of diving in and seeing which ones suit you best. Just a few more NSOs. So if you're into your sports, that's going to be the place to look. And some smaller businesses and enterprises, which are very much kind of in the ecotourism or sustainability sector. We work with NRL Fiji, Rugby Union Fiji, but also Cricket Fiji. So the big ones, the smaller ones, is completely up to you where you spend your time and who you eventually commit your time to. And you might be thinking, right, that's all well and good, but what on earth do these projects actually look like? Well, to give you a bit of an idea, on this page, you can see the organisation title in kind of bold at the top. And underneath is literally the wording of an action project brief that's been sent through in the past that has already been completed by interns. So just to pick out one here, the Ministry of Education, top left, create educational plans and resources for hands-on activities in which children enjoy learning. That's a very creative task. If you're interested in that area, it'll be a lot of research, I can imagine, in terms of the methodology about why you're choosing to do what you're going to do. And obviously, in the implementation of the project itself, you're very much proposing this. It doesn't mean to be that the Ministry of Education is definitely going to take on everything you've done, but it is going to be the key elements of how you communicate that and how you back up what you've chosen and why. Completely different task here. Youth Champs for Mental Health. Develop mental health and suicide prevention programs or projects for specific target groups. So I'll be developing those and ideas for kind of workshops and seminars in rural areas. Completely different task again, very much system-based. Be thinking about logistics and practicalities. Understanding Fiji, particularly rurally, is going to be integral for that. And I can imagine producing a report at the end for that project. So just a few examples. And like I said, we've got about 260 similar to that you're doing. So very exciting indeed. So that's all well and good. That's how the program functions, what it's for, and what you'll be doing. But how does it all work? In terms of operations and support, we're not going to chuck you in the deep end without armbands. That is definitely not going to happen. Support-wise, you'll have a personal mentor assigned to you. Every single intern has this. That mentor is a team member from Think Pacific, so it could be myself, it could be one of my colleagues, but we are literally there to offer that guidance, that support, answer any questions on project, but importantly, offer feedback on work as well, just to make sure it's going in the right direction. The skills series, again, is just some things we put together. If you've never taken on any of these projects before, say if you want to look into proposal funding writing as a skill, you want to learn about it, but you've never done it, you can look straight to the skills series, which is like a how-to guide on how to do that. So a bit of a trampoline spring into doing the task itself. The platforms itself, how this all happens, well, all the content you can think of is based on the online portal. This is bespoke, and you'll get exclusive access to this. This will contain all information about our partners, all the action projects, the skills series, and all the learning content in the discovery phase. So a nice centralized place to find everything if you ever need it. And Mighty Networks, I don't know if you've ever heard of this before. It's a really up and coming platform and we absolutely love it. So we are using it for all communications on the program. Basically us communicating with you guys, you communicating with each other, us posting recordings of previous events. You can treat Mighty Networks to kind of like your home on the internship and with everything else that's going on. And lastly, reflection. We encourage reflection as a personal and kind of professional skill. To help you with this, we do give you a self-reflection journal, and this is not something you have to do. It's not mandatory, but we really think it's worthwhile because if you're anything like me, as soon as I've done something, I forget what I've done. And when it comes to an interview or bragging about it on LinkedIn, it's a really good resource to go back if you've jotted down exactly what you've done each day, how you found it, the skill you developed and learned. It's a great thing to do. So your mentors will be pushing this. This is one of the main kind of reasons for the mentor sessions. But the self-reflection form is a really good thing to look into in addition to this. Great stuff. So as I promised, university funding is available. Your university has done wonderfully with this, and there's a particular kind of setup we've got. There are limited spaces for fully funded programs, but if you are successful with any of these applications, you will be receiving a fully funded place, which is great. Why on earth would you not want to go for it? You can see the allocation of those different spaces on the screen based on departments and schools. It's divvying up kind of whether that's 10 spaces for School of Psychology through to kind of 5 for School of Arts, English and Language. It really is a case of thinking, right, I'm going for limited spaces, and if I am going for the fully funded spaces, thinking it's going to be competitive. So when you're making your application, make sure to hone in, I'd say, on motivation to join, what you're hoping to get from it. Mindset for us is much more experienced than, much more beneficial and important than experience when you take on an internship like this. And there is a bespoke application link. So in the bottom of your screen here, you can see that particular URL. If you apply on our website in the normal application link, it will not work. You'll just go through the normal system and you won't be going for QUB funding. So that's the application link that you need to follow if you are going to go for a fully funded space. But if you're successful with that, you are good to go and you won't have to pay a dime for the experience. You can jump on in whichever date you've chosen and get started. So what a cool opportunity that is. And if you're unsuccessful with that application, you may still be able to pursue the opportunity after, but it would just be a case of going through the normal application. But I'd say if you're in any of those schools, absolutely go for it. Program start dates, there are plenty to choose from, but for you guys, it's going to be the summer dates to look into. You can find a few more on the website, but these are the main ones you'll be looking into, as we've discussed with your university. They happen pretty much kind of weekly, bi-weekly. So from the 23rd of May all the way through to the 15th of August on the Monday start date. And your internship will start depending on how long you've chosen it to be on that first start date. So if you're doing 4 weeks, it's a month. If you're doing 8 weeks, you get the idea. So again, worthwhile thinking about this. You don't need to necessarily tell us exactly what you're going to go for in the application, but thinking about what you've got going on, how this will kind of relate to different things you've got going in the summer, and what will work best. And the last thing we're going to do before we have a bit of a Q&A at the end and just go through deadlines of when to apply, etc. We've actually got a very quick video to show you just to hear from someone who's kind of been there and done that. If you're anything like me, I love researching and hearing things from people who've done it before. So I think it's worthwhile just hearing from a previous intern on their experience, what their project was and how they found it.
I'm Suzanne Toll and I'm from Queen's University in Belfast. So I just finished my first year and going into my second year now. Well, obviously with the pandemic, you know, there wasn't too much going on and I really wanted to do something with my summer that was productive and would fulfill me because I like to be busy. That's kind of just the person I am. And especially I'm doing psychology. So with psychology, it's often hard to find kind of relevant experience. So when I saw that Think Pacific offered you know, lots of different things, but specifically you can do your project within psychology, that just completely hooked me from then. So yeah. So it was for the Psychiatric Survivors Association of Fiji and I did social media content. So I had to create a schedule for them and then I also created lots of different posts. So I used Canva to do that, which was really, really useful. I wanted to pick a project that was something I'd never done before, which obviously was challenging, you know, in its own way, but I really, really enjoyed that. I kind of thought, you know, looking at their Facebook, they had quite a minimal Facebook. So I thought, you know, I could really start from fresh there and make a lot of good posts for them. It was really fun kind of deciding the colour scheme and the kind of format of each post. It was really, really enjoyable. So that was completely new skill and using Canva, it was my first time using that and it was a really good platform to use. I went to a couple of the virtual coffees, which are really, really good. I went to a few just with the psychology people, but then also with people from, you know, doing all different projects, and that was really enjoyable because we got to kind of share what we were doing and it was just a really nice break from doing the kind of individual work. One of my kind of main goals with it was to kind of improve at working by myself. I think at that stage I was really used to working as a team and kind of with more guidance, and obviously there's so much help and support, but like your project you definitely just do yourself. It's quite kind of independent work and, you know, just the way you fit it in with your schedule, and I really enjoyed kind of challenging myself for that. So I feel like I definitely gained that. I would just definitely say go for it. It was really, really enjoyable and I'm so glad I did it. Definitely, yeah, just take your time and kind of consider whether you want to do the 4, 8 week or 12 week. I did the 4 week and you know, I was afraid it might be a bit too full on, but it was absolutely brilliant. So just yeah, just enjoy it and pick something that you're really interested in and yeah.
Always lovely hearing from people who've done it before, and so lovely to hear that you had such a good experience with it as well. So moving on very lastly, guys, to the very last step. There is a deadline if you are looking to go for the particular funding from your university. If you could apply before March the 11th at midday, that would be absolutely amazing. You put yourself in that ball pit, that zone to be eligible for funding. And really interviews from there on out will start taking place in March, the 12th, the day after. So that'll be a mixture of kind of between your university and us having discussions about that. We'll choose those eligible places and hopefully fill them up and have them discussions and hopefully receive kind of offers if you are successful by April the 8th. And really from then on, if you are successful, just a case of being onboarded, receiving access to the portal and starting your internship journey from there on out. And that is absolutely everything. Any questions at all, guys?
Cam, that sounds absolutely fantastic. What a great presentation. So everybody, if you do have any questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat and Cam will be very happy to answer them. I suppose in the meantime, Cam, while we see if anyone has any questions, maybe one for me then. So have you any tips for applying or completing your application? And that might be something that students will be worried about.
Yeah. Oh, well, I can speak on behalf of Think Pacific, I guess, in what we're looking for in applicants. And again, like I said before, I'd really stress that it's not always about experience. Don't feel like if you're not going to apply based on not thinking you've had relevant experience, that's not something to think about, because the whole point of this internship is that you can take on a piece of work, gain experience, and from ground zero if it's in a new sector. So for us, it's all about mindset that you're coming in with and how you're going to apply that. So if you're bringing a strong motivation and commitment to the project and you're applying for the right reasons, you have a good awareness of kind of the sector that you're working in as well, always makes sense. So I think if you can communicate your motivations for applying and why you think you'd be applicable and relevant to this particular opportunity through that, then you're absolutely golden. You can't do much more than that. Wouldn't give us a massive essay, but also make sure you get enough in there to communicate that clearly.
That's brilliant. That's really, really helpful. No questions here in the chat at the moment. I suppose just speaking to everybody here today, I mean, if you are anxious about completing application forms or thinking about interviews, you can book an appointment with our careers consultants via the My Future platform, and you can have a chat with someone for up to 30 minutes to maybe alleviate any fears you might have. Yeah, that option is available for you. So I don't think we have any more questions. So I guess then just to say once again, Cam, thank you very much again for coming along to speak today. I must say it sounds really, really exciting. And I know that the feedback last year from the students that took part was really excellent. So I know the students here can check out the testimonials on the website there, which are really, really good. And just for anyone watching this presentation, if you do have any questions afterwards, if you just email the Global Opportunities team, and you can email us at goglobal@qub.ac.uk. So if there's no other questions, we'll end it there. Thank you very much again, and I hope you all have a lovely afternoon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you again, Karen. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.